All right, welcome to the first of many Dominoes versus Machines daily updates. Here is the first clip. This is my first idea that I'm building, and this is an idea that just kind of came to me all of a sudden. It wasn't an idea that I've had on my idea list for forever or anything like that, but I actually really like it, and I'm excited about it. So here's the idea. These are bounce platforms for a ping pong ball, and they flip up and down. So all four of them rotate like this. So the idea is to have all four of them up and they alternate like this. So that like you can have one and then there's going to be one in the middle. So there'll be four of them in a row, two on each side. The idea is you have a ball, come down 1, 2, 3, 4 and bounce on all four of them. And then they collapse like this. And then you might have noticed I have a launcher over here and I put it on a little platform. And I don't actually know how everything's going to be laid out like this. But anyway, yeah, so ball goes into the launcher, and then it gets fired, and it bounces like back and forth on the bounce platforms. So in this kind of zigzag pattern, all completely horizontally. So it's going fast enough that it doesn't lose speed and then fall down to the table. That's the idea. Hopefully it all works. So the challenge right now is figuring out how I'm going to lay this out, because I think that actually it's going to be too big to do it all like this, like completely perpendicular to the camera angle. And also you can't really tell what's happening this way either. You can't really see the platforms. And then if I do it this way, the same sort of thing applies, because then this is not as bad, but it's kind of hard to tell, how it's bouncing and all that. So, and also like the thing that's going to be throwing the ball, like there needs to be a very specific mechanism to throw the ball at a specific angle and at a specific speed. And that's going to have to be closer to the center of the table if everything's horizontal like this, which means the camera angle probably won't be able to see the top of it. Like it's going to be hard to get it all in frame. And speaking of the thrower device, I'm actually kind of worried about that. I don't know how I'm going to make a device that will consistently throw the ball at the right speed and at the right like height and angle. And well, it's actually not as much concerned about whether I can make it consistent. I'm worried if it's possible at all. If it has to be thrown too fast or from too high up, that's going to be basically just too unwieldy to try to fit into a screen-link clip. So we'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, I'm a little bit worried about that. But yeah, that's it for now. I have a general idea of what I'm going to do next. I'm going to start, actually taping stuff down and figuring out the angle, and then experimenting with the angle for the launcher, and then probably experimenting with getting the thrower in. But yeah, I'm excited about this clip. Let's see how it goes. All right, it is day 2 of working on Dominoes versus Machines, and this is really starting to come together. So I've put all of them in place and actually secured all of them, or all of the bounce platforms, that is. I've put them into the right orientation, and right now they're being supported by these sort of temporary holders, which are just, blocks that are approximately the right height, or they're more than approximately. They are very specific, but they're not going to be the final thing that's under there. And I've built the thrower for the ball, which was easier than I expected it to be. Like I said before, I was actually kind of worried about how I was going to make a device to throw the ball at the correct angle and the correct speed and everything, because it seemed like it was going to be really hard to do. And of course, the catcher is now here, and the launcher is at the correct angle as well. This is fixed in place, and this is fixed in place. So there's a trigger for it here now, and this is probably not going to work, but you can kind of get the idea. Yeah. That's about what it usually does. Occasionally it does work. I've seen it work, so I'm confident that it's possible. That's where we're at now. So the next thing to do is put in the track underneath, the thing that actually, or build the actual collapsible, triggers, the collapsible supports for each of the platforms, and then make something that, probably a ball on a track that rolls underneath, that will release them all kind of boom, 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 like 1, 2, 3, 4. And I want to do it where it's where the ball is getting thrown, and then it like bounces, and then like as soon as it finishes bouncing on each platform, the platform underneath it collapses. So it's like a race with the ball. Yeah. So yeah, that's where we are now, and it's looking pretty good. All right, it is day 3 of building clips for Dominoes versus Machines, and we are just about done with this first clip where the ball bounces on the platforms and then they collapse. So I've now put in the central track through the middle, and that's going to be where this ball rolls through, and I've built the triggers for each of them. So these are the things that hold up each platform, and these are the little arms, little levers that knock over the supports. And it's timed so that the ball rolls through the center at the same speed as the ping pong ball that bounces across the top. So the only thing left to do is build the sort of transition from the metal ball rolling and then getting the timing right to transition to starting the ball thrower. So getting that to be perfectly in sync so that they both start rolling at the same time, so that the ball bounces on the platform and then like a split second later the platform collapses. I want that to be like the timing to be really tight on that for it to be maximally impressive. And I got to build the transition here, so the thing that knocks over the domino with a big wooden plank, which is easy. And I guess there is one other thing, is building the transition in, which I don't actually know what I'm going to do with that yet. But yeah, everything's kind of coming together. The hard part is behind me, so I think this will be the last update for this clip. Okay, this is the next clip of Dominoes versus Machines. And I am very excited that this idea is actually working the way that I envisioned it. So the idea is we have 4 curved tracks that make a circle, and we have a ball that rolls around in one direction, in this case counterclockwise. So from here, going that way, and then it landing right here. And then this entire board actually rotates. So the idea is to have it go so fast that centrifugal force forces all of these tracks to fly outwards on their rails, and they'll make a larger ring. So it's hard to do with one hand. I might not get the speed right, and the ball might go flying. I haven't worked out all the issues yet, but basically that looks like this. And the idea is, I stopped it very lightly there. I kind of let it stop by itself, but the idea is that it will stop abruptly. I'll have like a catcher to stop it very abruptly, so that when it stops, the ball is ejected out by itself, because Newton's first law, objects in motion stay in motion. So the ball will go along, and it's going to be tight, the timing of getting something to fall down into here to complete this gap. But the other gaps are going to be really easy, because the ball takes some time to get there. But this first one's going to be really fast. It's going to be like the ball's going to be like right at the edge of the track before it falls down. So that'll be a bit tough to figure out. And then the method that I'm using to get the board to spin is just a rubber band. That's literally all it takes. I'm just going to wrap it around the corner. This is definitely something I can't do with one hand, but it'll be basically wrapped around one corner and then stretched, and then the board is held in place until the board is released, and then the rubber band pulls the board around. It goes pretty fast, but not so fast that you can't tell what's happening. And actually, the biggest challenge of today was making the entire board spin and getting all of this figured out. Actually, underneath here, I have a board with 5 wheels on it, because originally I thought I might have to wrap a string around and make a weight, like an off-table weight, pull a string to rotate the board. But actually, I'm just going to use the rubber band. It's actually quite powerful, which I didn't expect. So actually, these 4 wheels in the corner aren't going to be used for anything, but luckily you won't see them. The center one is the axis that it rotates on, obviously. But luckily, yeah. And then, of course, the wheels here keep it all level, which is super crucial to make everything look clean. Well, I'll put it back later. Yeah, it's not meant to look like that. So, no big issues yet, but we'll see how things go tomorrow. It is day 2 of building this clip, and oh my gosh, so much progress. And actually, a completely working, well, I want to say prototype, but it's going to be it's going to be the final version. It's just not like connected fully with all the connections and stuff. But yeah, so the concept is exactly like it was yesterday. Nothing changed fundamentally. It's still about an inner circle of tracks that gets expanded due to centrifugal force. The one thing that did change is the method by which the tracks around the outside that get filled in to fill the gaps are placed into place. That has changed. I originally thought that when the board stopped rotating, I'd have to have the tracks fall in from the outside, and I was talking about how that would have to happen really, really quickly because the ball is going to be exiting the first track basically instantly. And that's also something that hasn't changed. The general concept is that the ball will rotate inside the smaller circle going counterclockwise, basically like this, stopping at the red border. And then when the tracks expand, it will be pressed against this border, this barrier, because it'll be going this way. All right, so as it's rotating, the barrier is pushing it along. And then when it suddenly comes to a stop, the ball kind of keeps going. And then that's what propels it to go back around the opposite way along the longer route. So I'll just do the demo right away. Here we go. So let's see how this works. Very close. That's fine. It'll work eventually. Yeah, so that's the gist of it. The challenging part today was figuring out how the track system was going to work and putting all of these into place. What I really like about it is you can just kind of slide them back. You don't have to like pick anything up in order to do it. It just works like this. So the idea is that they're on these little hinges, and the track is able to slide right underneath until this point, in which they just kind of they slide all the rest of the way. And that's the same on both sides. And it's super elegant, super clean, and the benefit of this is that basically the timing is immediate. There's no risk of the track being late to fill the gap. Like, it fills it by itself instantly. And then, of course, there are other things that I had to do, like adding these magnets over here, like the two red guys in there. And, well, I mean, they're on all sides. So there's two in there. That's harder to see. Here's a good view. Those two magnets there, and they're on all four sides. And those are spaced just perfectly so that they're attracting each other, and they hold the tracks together just enough so that way they don't shift when I push the ball around the circle. Otherwise, they might kind of shift out of place slightly, which would be annoying and it wouldn't look as good. So these just hold the tracks in place. But the challenge was making sure that that magnetic attraction force wasn't too strong, that they wouldn't be able to, spiral outwards, right? Like that's kind of the whole point. That would defeat the purpose. And then these magnets are here to lock them into place on the outside, which turned out to be necessary. And then this is the shock absorber, because this is the track that actually carries the ball. And if it doesn't have that shock absorber, the ball just goes flying. Same with this barrier here. And of course the barrier on the track itself. So as it slides back, the barriers get kind of filled in. Yeah, I mean, this is progress. Tomorrow will be easy. I got to make the rubber band thing, the rubber band trigger, which is going to be hopefully pretty easy. And then I got to connect everything up. But yeah, it's all downhill from here, meaning it should be the hard part behind me. That it should be the case. But we'll see. Update tomorrow. Day 3 of working on this clip. And Mechanically, things are going pretty well, but actually what I'm dealing with right now is a lot of aesthetic annoyances, things that I'm not really happy with how they look. So I'm actually considering changing a couple of things. The first big thing is actually this entire track around the outside. I put in this module yesterday with the magnet on it that actually stops the board from rotating, and it has to be super locked into place and taped down to the table, and it's really bulky because it's stopping a whole lot of force really quickly. Makes sense. And I didn't want to have to make another one of those modules for the rubber band release. So I figured I might as well combine the two and actually it's a 3-in-1. It's the catcher for the magnet, it's the release lever that actually gets the board to start rotating, and it's the holder for the rubber band. But it means that the ball rotates around counterclockwise in the small loop, and it ends on this side of the board, this corner here. You know, if the board were set up properly, it'd be this track in the bottom left-hand side. And that transitions to here. And then there's this really long track that kind of goes all the way around. And I just don't love the way that the momentum of excitement in the clip is carried throughout. Because you have this, you know, not exactly exciting, but, you know, interesting, intriguing motion of the ball rolling around the inside. You're kind of wondering, okay, what's that going to be? What's that going to do? And then that excitement is interrupted by just this long ball path. And it's really there to just get from this side of the board to that side of the board, when realistically, it doesn't need to be there. I could just make another one of these modules and have the rubber band release be on this side of the board right away. The other thing I'm not super jazzed about is this lever here, which is there to release the ball in the initial position. I don't love that when it's in the upright position, it just stays there, and then the camera's going to be here, and this whole thing is just going to be, I mean, it's not like it blocks your view of anything, but it's just there in the foreground, and I want this to be clean. I want you to be able to see everything. I don't want a big, black stick kind of blocking your view. So I'm going to have to figure out a different way of getting around that. But yeah, mechanically everything works great. I just have to figure out a way to get around those aesthetic nitpicks. Yeah, we'll see. All right, it is the last day of building for this clip. I just finished filming it, both the regular version with this camera and the slow-mo version, which is how this is set up for. I had to get a little bit creative with that. But the update basically is that I fixed the two things that I was kind of unhappy with yesterday aesthetically. I moved the starting lever over to the right side so that when it flips up, it's completely out of the way and it doesn't block your view of the board spinning. And I removed the track going all the way around the outside. So I installed another module of, one of these chunky block things, just like this one over here. But of course, green, I guess, to be like green means go, red means stop, I guess. And that's where the starting lever is as well, and the rubber band attachment point. So that's what that is over here. Basically, I just converted the lever that initially led to pushing the ball. Or no, I guess I had it so that it knocked a domino over, and the domino pulled a string to release the ball, but I changed that to just knock over the domino, and then the domino triggers the lever. So this is a much more streamlined approach, and it maintains the kind of momentum that I wanted, where it goes around slowly and then immediately reverses direction and goes really fast. So I'm happy with that. This will be the transition out. This is the transition in. Those are both very easy. I just really like how uncluttered this entire clip is. Pretty much all of the action happens on the board itself. So yeah, I'm happy with this one. Time to move on to clip number 3. All right, it's the end of day 1 of this new trick. The basic idea is this kind of cool dual arm motion, which I can show you in a sec, and it's carrying a track. So it's a track trick. Yippee. Everyone's excited about new and improved track tricks. Yeah, and it's kind of got this very unique look to it because it's got this giant black square, or rectangle, I guess. But yeah, so it starts by releasing this clothespin to do the first part of the motion, which looks like this. Okay, it's a little bit slow at the moment, and you'll notice this domino also fell over. I will talk about what that means. So this is the second position, and then here's the third position. Okay, this is another clothespin that goes to the third position. Okay, well, some fixes need to be made. This is supposed to go to like here, but that's the gist of it. So if I take the weights off the table, then I can sort of do the whole thing manually, and you can sort of see. So it's this weird sort of like snaky motion, which I really like, and it was inspired kind of by sort of a faultily, like badly built flexing parallelogram that I made at one time, and then I realized that it kind of just did this weird motion where it would like fall to one side and then wrap underneath, and then the other side would kind of be free to rotate around. So this is basically the motion that I'm doing, and underneath here are two wheels, two pulleys, and the string is off the pulley at this point, so that's why it's loose. But on this side, this is the first one, you'll notice that there's a lever underneath, which is this lever here that raises the wheel. So it's actually engaged with a Connex piece that's, holding it, relative to the axle. So it's pinning it along the axle. And then once it pulls all the way, you've got this that comes down and lifts it up to disengage it, which makes the axle able to rotate freely without rotating the gear with it, or without rotating the wheel with it. And then on this side, it's basically the exact same thing, but without the lever and the whole fancy stuff. It's just a wheel, a pulley. So the biggest challenge of this was sort of putting in this whole flat platform. This is like some cardstock. So I had to figure out how to make it supported, like from enough points that it wouldn't just bend and flex, because it's glorified cardboard basically. And I came up with this system of using the rods, the metal rods, which you can kind of see, and they're just kind of in this triangular pattern, which just creates enough support points underneath. There are 9 different support points underneath, and that's enough to keep everything straight. And then, that was one challenge, and then the other challenge was accurately locating where the holes need to go, because obviously there are holes in the cardboard, which you can kind of barely see, but there you go. Yeah, for the Connex rods to stick through. So everything's going well at this point. The next thing I need to figure out is how. I think I'm going to do it with one ball that goes along the whole path. So you're like all 3 paths as like one ball on all 3 track positions. So ball goes across in this direction, it swings around, the same ball goes from left to right this way, and then it swings around this way, and the same ball goes right to left in the third position. So I got to figure out how to, lift the ball back up to restore it back to this point. So there'll probably be some ball lifts involved, and then I got to figure out how to get the timing right so that it rotates and moves, and that these clothespins trigger, in between those points where the ball lifts are lifting the ball to restore it back to a higher point. And maybe it'll end up being sort of a timing thing. I don't know. So that's all for tomorrow, but yeah, this is coming along. All right, it is day 2 of whatever this clip is going to be called. I really have no idea. Some kind of flexing track cross carrier thingy. So the updates since yesterday, I've added in the side lead-in tracks with the blue straws here, and each of the ball lifts that lifts the ball up. So these 2 here, as well as the lead-in track, and of course the lead-out track that will transition into a domino clip. That's the that's the gist of it. I had to tweak some of the weights, and of course they're now on the table, just because I don't want to put stress on these pulleys. But I've had to add some extra, like this little addition here, and then this extra little addition there. And I think, oh, this is also new. Yeah, this extra bit here, the part that slides down, it's part of a, oh, what did I call it in those videos? Dual limited weight pull, or something like that. Or no, something about weight and like double weights. The one where it's like two weights and then they separate. Everything else is, oh, okay. Yeah, the other big update is how I decided I was going to get to triggering each of the releases. So from the last update, we had both of the clothespins, and these were to trigger each of the motions of the swinging track. The question was, how was I going to get from like the motion of the lifting ball carrier, like immediately to the front of the table to release the string for the clothespin. And this is the system I came up with. It's one of these like, I don't know, I think it's like teleporting levers basically, but it's this is another technique that I talked about in the tutorial, like 50 fundamental chain reaction mechanisms video, and I've forgotten what I called it, but basically paired levers is what I called it. So the string on this one pulls this, and it basically immediately knocks a weight off the table. And similarly over here, when the ball carrier reaches the top, it pushes on that lever, and then that's paired with this lever, which immediately pushes a weight off the table. So those were the big challenges, which, you know, once I actually set my mind to figuring out a solution, they weren't even that big of a deal. 2 days for this whole clip. Pretty good, actually. It went together quicker than I thought it would. I think like the end kind of snuck up on me a little bit. Like I got to the end, and I was like, oh, I'm done. I've connected everything. I kind of didn't realize that I don't know. I kept thinking that I had more to do, and then I was just done. So yeah, this one I'm ready to start testing. Hopefully it won't be too bad. It is day 1 of the 4th clip for Dominoes versus Machines. There's a bit of bad news at the moment, as I have yet to get this thing actually working. But I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. I should explain the idea first. So my idea was to have some kind of launching trick, and I really liked this idea of having 2 things flying through the air and then magnetizing together in midair, and then falling back down somehow and getting caught somehow, all very controlled. Like that was the initial premise, but I didn't really know how I was going to do it, or what exactly the motion would be. So this is what I came up with. So the idea is you've got 2 of these track segments, and they're cut at a 45-degree angle, like this, and they are going to be launched horizontally, outwards, or I guess inwards towards each other, but outwards from the launchers, at the same time. And I can't really do this with one hand, I still have to hold the camera, but the idea is that they're going to come out at the same time, like this, and then let's move this out of the way. And that's what these rubber bands are for. That's how it launches. That's how they get launched. But they both come in towards the center, and then they meet and magnetize like this. And because of that force of being, caught in the center, they then start rotating on that central axis. So they come in and then they rotate, and then I was planning on having the track, they magnetize like right around here, and then it would spin maybe, I don't know how much it would spin, and then land like this and become its own track segment. And of course the tracks would be used as track segments in their initial positions as well. So that's the idea, and I'm committed to doing this idea. So no matter what happens, I'm going to figure out a way to make it work somehow. But the problem is right now, these magnets just don't work. And it seems as if one magnet has actually come unglued. This should be here. They just don't magnetize. So the rubber bands launch very quickly. So they come together in the center, they basically hit each other in this exact position, but then just bounce off each other. And I've been doing some slow motion analysis. I've got my tripod here. I've been doing some slow motion analysis, just double checking that that is actually what's happening. And yeah, I mean, I guess the magnets aren't strong enough or something. They're going too fast. They don't actually click together. They just bounce off, which is super frustrating. But the last time I had this exact problem, I was able to fix it with different magnets. I don't really know if those same magnets will be able to work in this instance, just because there's not really the right orientation for everything. So I guess I'll try that. I'll try rearranging the positioning of these magnets. But yeah, this is not... it's disappointing. I don't really have anything cool to show yet. But I've built, all the launchers and everything, and nothing to show for it quite yet. But we'll see. I'm still, like I said, I'm committed to getting this to work somehow. Okay, it is day 2 of working on this clip, and things are even bleaker than yesterday. I am doing the update now because I'm basically just giving up on almost everything that I have on the table right now. The towel is here because I was, testing the tracks coming into the center and colliding, and I never got anything close to working. Like, not even like, oh, okay, I can build on that. It was just abject failure after abject failure. Like, nothing that even remotely approximated something close to maybe a possible success. It was just evident that there was zero chance of anything working. And okay, I guess I didn't explain the towel. The towel was there because every single time that these collided and then fell onto the table, something would break off. Every time. It just got so... I was really frustrated. So that's what that is for. I tried everything that you can think of. I mean, I've tried... different magnets. I've tried different orientations of the magnets. You can see what, all these pencil marks are from where I tried to glue it on in different orientations. I've tried doing it in a way that, like, they hook together, instead of bouncing. Like, I was thinking that if they hook together, there's something else there that, like, it's not just that they're relying on the magnetic power to hold them. I'm thinking, like, if there's something where, two pieces come together and latch, like physically and not just through magnetism, then maybe that would work. Not at all. Not even a little bit. I'm out of ideas for how to just, iterate this design, but like I said yesterday, I'm still committed to this idea, this premise, this concept of two tracks getting launched through the air and then colliding in midair and then, sticking together. They attach to each other in midair, and then because they attach in the center and their momentum is, they want to go in the same direction that they were just traveling, that causes the entire assembly to then rotate. I want to do it. I know, I am 100% confident that it is not impossible. And I've just been extremely shocked that I've had this much of a problem with it. Like, nothing's behaving the way that I anticipated it would. Like, magnets just don't work, apparently. You know what I mean? Like, it baffles me why magnets, when they hit each other, especially like 3 really strong magnets, they hit each other, and they don't stick. It just doesn't make sense. So I don't know how much of this will even look like this tomorrow. But I got to think about it. I just really, really want to make this trick work. I really want to make this idea work because I think it will be cool. And the other reason I'm totally dejected is just that, even if this were to work, you can see that based on the orientation of these, like, the trick is not even here anymore. Like, the base concept of it is to have them fly through the air and then meet in midair. But, like, these are so close together that they don't even do that. Like, the concept has been so watered down that it's not even there anymore. Like, it wouldn't even be what I wanted it to be, even if this worked, which it doesn't. So it's back to the drawing board pretty much from square one, but I want to make this work. Okay. So I don't know what day it is, maybe 4 of working on this, but for the first time, good news. We have something that works, and I will show you what I ended up doing. I used these really strong magnets, which are, I think, like used for name badges, like magnetic name badges. But these things are the strongest magnets that I have. Actually, that might not be true anymore, but these are definitely the smallest strong magnets that I have, or the strongest small magnets that I have. And remember last time I said, the last time I had an issue like this where magnets wouldn't attach to each other and they instead just bounce right off of each other, I used a certain type of magnet, but that won't work here. There's not enough space. Well, I decided to try and completely redesign the tracks and use those magnets instead. And here's what I came up with. So the first issue that I think was wrong with the first design was that I was trying to do like a diagonal slice through, and that meant that when the magnets attached to each other, they weren't really attaching, they weren't colliding with each other straight on. They were trying to approach at an angle. And then I was trying to, glue on magnets that would come in straight on and then make that work with the diagonal cut, and it just didn't really work. Now this I designed specifically with the intent of using these magnets, and it looks really nice, I gotta say, but I'll take it apart so you can see what one module looks like. It's just that. That's all it is. And these two halves come at each other at lightning fast speed, and they approach perfectly in line with each other. They're not approaching at an angle. So here's what I got. This is the slow-mo version. So this is the take that I ended up getting. Is it able to focus? I don't know. You'll see. Boom. Boom. They hit each other right in midair. It's perfect. And they collide and then they stay together. Now that particular take didn't look very nice because something else happened, but that's a secondary concern that I'm going to be fixing. So the next step is, now that I have these working, basically, I know that the proof of concept is there, I am going to elevate these launch platforms, I guess, so that way the track can do more rotations once they meet. Like, I want them to meet and then attach to each other and then spin. I think I'll probably try to do a 180 to rotation as it's going down. But right now I can tell, just based on the video, that they're not able to make it quite that far. So these need to be higher up to give it more fall distance to get more rotation in. And I'm hoping to be able to separate them even more, because right now there isn't a whole lot of distance where they're just flying through the air, like airborne, free-falling, basically. I want these launch modules to be further apart so that there's more time where they're just kind of flying through the air before they even meet. So yeah, I want to make this I want to push it as far as I can, basically. Like, I know that they meet in midair and the magnets work now, but I don't know how far I can push it quite yet. So I want to make it as high as I can go, and I want to make them as far apart as I can go. So we'll just have to see. But that's going to be for tomorrow. I'm exhausted from today. Let's see where this thing ends up. I'm excited about it now. Day 5 update of this crazy trick. Now, it's working. That's the gist of it. It is actually working. As weird as it is and as unbelievable as that is to say, it's working. I only have the releases left to make. So the release that pulls down on that lever and this lever at the same time to release both tracks. And actually, I don't know how I'm going to do that quite yet. I mean, I'm pretty certain it's going to be a string pull, but from where, I don't know, and I don't know how exactly I'm going to make sure that they're exactly the same, like released at the exact same time. That's going to be tough. But that's about it, other than just like making the little connections to for the ball. So obviously, one track segment starts over here, loaded into the lever, and the other one starts over here. So it's going to start, ball rolls over this one, then it's going to roll around on a little track, come back this way, roll around on this one, and then it's going to fall down or roll down on a track somehow like this. And there's going to be a split off to actually release them and do the whole point of the trick. They can come in, meet in the middle, spin, and fall. The tracks do. And then the ball continues rolling around this way, or maybe it'll come forward this way. I'm not sure yet. Actually, it probably will. I'd rather have it come from back to front at the end. So maybe once it comes off this, yeah, I'll figure it out. So just the ball path and the release is all that's left. And then just the little transitions from going in and out. So that is that. I would do a demo, but I need two hands for it. So this is all going well. But I'm going to call it here for the day, and I'll be back tomorrow. It is day 6, and we're finally done with this trick. Now, I still haven't gotten it to work yet, so that might end up being a bit of a process, but I'm relatively confident that it won't be too arduous to get it to work. So this is the final product. You can see all of the connections are now here. We've got the track that goes from here around this way. I put in a little tube here to get from all the way up there to down here, and then goes around this way. I just bumped this. It goes around this way, and then crosses the track once it lands there, this way, and then rolls off the side of the screen. And then this is how everything works. It's this lever here that knocks off the domino to release the clothespin, to drop the weight, and then this is a series of pulleys. One goes this way, under there, around here, up to there, and the other side goes around this way, same deal on this side, up to there. And of course they're perfectly synchronized so that they go at the same exact time. Now, the thing to know about this trick is that literally every single aspect of it was the worst. Just the worst. Now, I'm kind of saying that and smiling now, but it was not fun installing all of this. Like, what I wanted to do was go from here to here using a segment of TrixTrack. However, none of the dimensions of TrixTrack lined up at all, right? TrixTrack is very modular. The tracks are specific lengths, and I'm not, cutting my TrixTrack to make custom lengths. So I ended up not being able to use TrixTrack because the distance just, it couldn't be made up of TrixTrack parts, basically. So I have this, the modular, or not modular, molding track, which I like to use as well. And you'll notice as well that it's not entirely perpendicular to the rest of the machine. So, if you look at it like this, you can tell that it kind of curves inward. But from the angle that I'm shooting it at, it's kind of hard to tell. It looks like it's perfectly, parallel. It doesn't bother me. So that was awful, coming up with how to transition from, the in transition up to releasing the blue ball, and just like how to mount all of these tracks, and just the fact that half the track is missing. So like, how do you roll a ball across this section where there's like half the track missing? That was awful. Everything. And same with this down here, like making the catching system. Yeah, everything was as inconvenient or as difficult as it could possibly be. Of course, including the main idea itself, which we've talked about. But we are done now. Under the assumption that I get this to work. So yeah, I'm happy with how it turned out. Glad to be done though. It is day one of starting a new clip, and as if I hadn't had enough of things flying through the air and magnetizing in midair, I'm doing another thing just like it. Not exactly, of course, the motion's quite different, but it involves things flying through the air and magnetizing, not quite in midair, but it's close. The gist of it, the idea is we've got these little magnet modules with gears on them. And there's one that looks like that, one that looks like this, and then two identical ones on the other side. This one apparently just broke, which I'm literally just now realizing. That's awful. I guess I'll have to fix that. And this one. This one doesn't have the yellow rods yet. That's a mistake. I came very prepared, as you can tell. So, the idea, I want to have them flip kind of like you can imagine like swinging on vines, sort of. Like I want it to kind of go to flip and then fly through, attach, and then flip again, and sort of like it's zoop, 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 sort of. Yeah. It's a tough thing to describe. Especially when I'm trying to do it all with one hand, because I hope I'm holding the camera. So this first one, flip, and then I want it to come out this side, magnetize onto here, like this, and now it's kind of being held in this position, and now this whole thing can kind of swing down like this, and then come out this way, and then this will fall down, and then this will all be symmetrical on the other side. So at the same time that this is happening up here, it's going to be happening on the other side symmetrically. So then two of these modules join up, ba-boom, like that. I guess technically ba-boom like that. I guess technically like that once I fix the glue issue. And then that will rotate. So I'm going to have gears on either side that it meshes with, and then that'll do something. So, yeah. There's a very good chance that this just plain doesn't work at all, but it seems to be going all right so far. So we'll keep going, and stay tuned for day two. It is day two of this gear assembly swinging trick, and I've gotten one side to work. I figured out how I am going to release the first one, and then more importantly, how the second one is going to be able to stay in its initial position at first until the first one gets there, and then kind of automatically be released itself and then swing along. Like, the challenge is, here's an example. The challenge is, here's what the second module looks like, is it has to be held in a position like this so that the magnets are, accessible when the first one kind of swings into it. But it doesn't hang like that naturally. It hangs like this. So I had to figure out a way to hold it in this position, but then allow it, and then whatever's holding it has to disappear, like go away somehow, as soon as the first one magnetizes to it, because otherwise, obviously, it's holding it. It'd be in the way. It has to swing down. And there really was no option for doing that through a timing delay kind of trick, where it's like, there's a support underneath that gets pulled out at just the right moment, as soon as it gets magnetized. Like, no, I had to do it in a way where the thing swinging into it and magnetizing also released it. So here's kind of what I came up with. I'll just do one side for now. There's one on the other side as well. You can see over there, it's symmetrical, but just one side. There we go. So this is how it's held in place. When the first block comes in, it comes in kind of like this, and you can see that this piece, this angled gray piece, is going to get knocked out of the way, and it just basically ejects the holder and then that allows it to swing. And then it kind of swings and comes off, and then flies through the air and lands like that. That's the idea. So I got this side to work already, and I'm just working on building the other side. So, this is kind of just copying what I did, but, a mirror image of it. And it's coming along. We'll see how it goes together. I'm anticipating that it's not going to work right away. Like I'm going to have to make some weird, unexplainable micro adjustment to make this side work. And there's no real, I'll never know why it has to be just ever so slightly different in order for it to work. But maybe I won't. Who knows? But that's for tomorrow. I hope nothing goes wrong. All right, it is day 2. Look at how much progress there is. So, last time I was done with this side and I had gotten it to work and I was building the other side. So that is now done and it's all secured in place. The distance between the two has been calculated out, or I guess tested, not calculated in the slightest. And I've come up with the system for triggering both at the same time. So if you'll recall, one of the other clips that I made was the one with the spinning track magnet system thing where they would spin in midair. This also required a synchronized, that's the word, synchronized release mechanism with two sides going at the exact same time. And I did that with a string that, went down the side and then kind of curved toward the center. And then I did it actually exactly the same way. So I'm just copying the same design, basically. This time it's a little different. I can just knock off a weight. I don't have to release a clothespin. But other than that, it's basically the same thing. As for the next steps, I am working on making this more reliable. I've only had one test so far that's actually worked perfectly, where where both sides have done the proper swinging motion, where it's done this first swing, second swing, and then they've met in the middle and magnetized to each other. That's only happened once, but I haven't given it a ton of tries. But one test so far where that's happened. Obviously, this is all temporary. The towels are all temporary. Those are just to prevent these things from breaking when, not if, when they fall onto the table or other platforms. Next step is to make the system that holds this. So what does it actually fall onto? That's what I got to figure out. And I'm building this at the moment, which this is like the 4th or 5th design. I'm still not totally sold on it. But I was thinking I'd build 4 of them, obviously, and then these would kind of slide in. But if it was off by a little bit, it would kind of funnel its way back in. But I want to make something like this, something that kind of does the same thing. But I have to be mindful about how the big gears are going to fit in, because it's going to be hard to demonstrate with the box here. But basically, pretend this is 90 degrees to where it is now. I do want to have, when it lands, big gears on the side like this that it meshes with. So whatever I make to hold the yellow pieces, I have to make sure that there's still enough room for this big gear. So that's something, but shouldn't be too much of a problem. The hard part is behind me, I think, unless it turns out that this isn't actually all that consistent after all. But so far, I have nothing to worry about. We'll see how this goes tomorrow. It is day 3 of this clip, and it's a big one. The clip is actually totally done. I haven't tested it yet, but I'm very confident that it'll work very quickly. It's been working very consistently in early tests. So, the big thing is now the gears are in place. Well, everything's in place, but since yesterday, these were not in place, and I was kind of thinking about how I was going to do it. There's a lot of backstory behind this, but you'll notice that there are now 2 blue gears on the sides here. So I'll try to summarize this as quickly as I can. Basically, the one thing that I've been trying to eliminate in my machines is something that I call machine maintenance. This is basically where it's like installing or removing various elements of the machine, like cleaning up and like maintaining the machine, and like you have to like put a track down into place, or like slide a gear into place, or remove a lever, or like it's like shifting elements of the machine around in order to get things to work properly. And there's an element of inelegance to it, just because if you need to like constantly shift things around, it's a lot less elegant than if everything was just kind of in the proper place and the machine just worked without you needing to like maneuver all these little elements all the time. So the one thing that I ran into a problem with is the yellow gears were originally planned on being a little bit higher up, basically, well, the width of one blue gear higher. But I ran into problems because the gear would be in the path of the motion of the swinging, magnets, like the platforms. Like this whole module would just like hit the gear on its way into the catching basin, which is also, new, by the way. All of that's new since the last update. So I had to, and I figured for a very long time that the only way to fix that with the gear would be to do something with machine maintenance, have something that slid the gear in or raised the gear up or flipped it down or in, some kind of method of installing the gear into the right place. And I was so vehemently against this idea. I hated the idea of, installing the gear and having it move into the proper place after the whole swinging motion. Like I wanted the swinging motion to just fill a gap in a gear chain without the gears having to shift into place. Like you can see the gap in the chain and then flip, flip, land, and boom, it's filled. That's what I wanted. So luckily this actually worked, adding an extra gear on the flipping platforms. It's just a little small gear mounted on the side of the second platform that gets picked up. And it just gives just enough height to be able to lower the yellow gear, and boom, it works. It's awesome. So the other thing I've done is just added the connections, and I can actually do a demo real quick of everything but the actual flipping parts. So here's the side. I'll kind of call it out when it happens and just be like, flip, flip, land. Man, that ball was way too slow. So anyway, ball goes in and ball goes in, raises up, marble goes. It's very consistent, I just said. Anyway, I'll figure out what just happened there. But this clip is done. It is day 1 of clip 5, and we are now entering the final stretch of Dominoes versus Machines, which is to say the time when I suddenly realize I have 2 weeks left to make like 4 clips. And I have to like really manage my time well in order to get everything done. So hopefully this won't take ages to put together, but so far so good. So the idea involves gears, but I would hesitate to call it a gear trick. I guess it's a gear trick. Here's the idea. So there are 2 levels of gears. There's one at the top, one at the bottom, and there are 2 that are unfinished. So there are going to be 2 side by side on the top and 2 side by side on the bottom. The idea is you got a ball. It's a ball transfer system. That's the gist of it. So first thing is ball goes in, it rotates half a rotation, then the entire module flips over, and then as that happens, the ball switches from one hole to the next. So now it's resting in this hole, and then just repeat. So this rotates half a rotation, and then it flips again, and then it would go into the next gear here. That one would it would flip, then rotate, flip, and rotate, and then eventually the ball would get dumped out. That's the idea. How do I want to do this? It would be really cool to have this entire module, once all 4 gears are loaded into it, I have all that done, I want to have it kind of rotate, almost roll along the table. So position 1 would be here. I actually don't know if it's going to go left to right or right to left, but let's say left to right for now. It starts here, and then the second iteration, it like rolls along this way, and then maybe this one, and then this one rotates, and then it would go boom, boom, and then this one rotates, and then it would keep rolling along like that. So kind of like one of Joel's rolling cube tricks or something. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that. So what have I really been spending all this time today doing? Making the arts and crafts, basically. So for this idea to really look good, I think, it needs to be clear that there's one hole that the ball is resting in per gear. And I needed a way to highlight that without, because it would work if I just had the ball go into a hole in the gear. But when all the spokes look alike and all the holes look alike, the concept isn't as clear. So it's hard to see necessarily that, oh, I get it. Okay, it's one hole in each gear and it's carrying the ball around. When all the gears and all the spokes and holes look the same, it's really hard to sort of see that motion amongst the chaos. So that's what all these are for. They're basically to cover up all the other spokes and to give a little bit of pop of color. So it's two pieces of cardstock per gear. So one on the front, one on the back. That's what all this is over here. This has kind of been my arts and crafts station where I've been using an X-Acto knife and a hole punch and all that. So that's what's taken most of the time. Yeah. My concern is just that these gears are too close together, that you kind of can't even see it. Like when the gear rotates and then, when the gear rotates and the ball's in there and it goes under, like when there's another gear right here, like you won't even be able to see that necessarily. So I'm worried about that, but I'm hoping that, there is this gap here. Like if there's another gear here, there is this gap here where it shows through. So you still get a chance to see it move along. And also, if I do do a motion like this, then there's when it's that moment when it's upright, when you get to see the ball. So hopefully that between that and this little gap, hopefully you won't just lose track of the ball entirely. But this is a bit of a risk, I guess. We'll see how it turns out. I'm going to continue tomorrow with all of the arts and crafts, putting together all 4 of the gears, make the assembly, try to get it to rotate. And, looking forward to tomorrow. Day 2 of this gear ball transfer system trick. And we are behind schedule, I would say. And I don't quite know how long it'll take to be done. Because there are only a couple of actual steps left to add, like elements that have to get added in. But those could take ages to add in, because a trick like this with multiple stages and multiple components often has unforeseen challenges. But this, at least, is done, the main concept. So today I spent most of the time building these supports, which are evenly spaced, so that the whole module can kind of roll, if you will. So actually I can do a demo of that. It starts with the ball on the outside, so maybe there'll be a track here or something with the ball that leads into it, and then it rotates half of a rotation, and then the whole module. Actually, let me reset the shock absorbers. Okay, then it rotates and flips over 180 degrees. Boom, and it's hard to see, which is kind of what I was talking about yesterday, about the visibility of this trick being a problem. But it has shifted into the bottom gear. So now, these gears will rotate half of a rotation. Okay, it looks good. And then repeat the process. So it flips again, and then you see that the ball has shifted one more over. Okay, continue rotating, flips again, and then the ball is now not where it should be because something broke. Or it didn't break, it didn't work, I guess. Fine. And then rotates it again, 180 degrees, and then it comes out the other side, and then finally one more tilt up to make the ball come out, and maybe there'll be a track here or something. So, I guess that's what this trick is. What am I working on now? I'm making levers. So this is kind of the module that I have in mind for actually making the whole module here flip. So this is going to go probably under here somewhere, to actually like pivot the whole thing and make it actually flip. That's going to be the hard part, is making all of that and like making a really, really, really absurdly heavy weight pull on these levers, because it takes just an astronomical amount of energy and force to pull on this to make it rotate. It's just one of those tricks that needs like 3 metric tons of force to make anything happen, and you'll just never really see it because it's all going to be hanging off the table. But yeah, I'm behind schedule, but it's possible that there'll be a lot of big progress tomorrow. It's also very possible that there won't be. Day 3, and things are kind of coming along. So I can at least see sort of the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess. I can kind of picture how it's going to all come together. So here's what I've done. I've added all of the connections for rotations number 1 and 3, just because they were both on the same side of the table, and I could just kind of translate, I'll get to that, translate one over to the other. Transition number 2, where it flips the second time, is going to be kind of reflected over the other side of the table. And then I got to still figure out what I'm going to do for that last half rotation, where it doesn't do a full 180, it just kind of tilts 90 degrees. So yeah, like I said, it's kind of the same. It's sort of a translation, except, everything gets shorter. The height gets lower. So this is the module for the lever that flips the first time, but then here is the module that flips it the third time. So it's a lot smaller. The biggest challenge to all of this is just the weight that's required. So when it's in this position, there's really only one way to actually flip the whole module over, and it's by having a lever on one side or the other, depending on which gear is in which location. So when it's like this, the only way to do it is on this side, and when it's flipped over 180 degrees, the only way to do it is on this side, right? Just because when that's there, here's the lever. When it's here, it's able to move out of the way when it rotates, and it's not interfering with anything. Because then when it rotates again, it can just kind of fall out of the way. So it's actually pretty complicated, but that doesn't work on the other side because there's this gear that ends up getting in the way. Anyway, long story short. Long story short, the levers only work on one side, and they need a lot of weight to get them to work. So this one especially, you'll notice, if I can pivot it upwards here, you'll notice that I'm trying to pull on a very small area here. So I'm trying to make this part rotate, but I'm pulling on it like a ½ inch away from the fulcrum. And I'm trying to flip this entire heavy thing. So this is the amount of weight that I need to do that. This is somewhere in the range of like 5,000 grams. I've measured it in grams because that's the best I could do with the little scale that I have. But yeah, it's very, very, very heavy. It's easily the heaviest weight that I've ever had to use in a machine. And I've needed like industrial strength reinforcement to like make sure that the knot doesn't come undone, and like this whole thing is double-sided taped inside the box, and like there's combination locks and ring weights and metal like wheel piece, just anything heavy that I can find is just chucked in there. Then of course the box itself has weight too. So yeah, just it's like a neutron star is like how much weight is needed to flip this stupid thing over. But this is about as heavy as it should ever get, because this is the last one, the lowest lever. So the other ones won't need quite as much. The first one's not quite as bad. But yeah, so like I said, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It just basically what I mean is I'm just in the process of kind of translating and copying modules that I've already kind of built. It's not quite that straightforward because I do have to change the heights, but like the actual hard work seems to be more or less in the past. I really, really, really hope I can finish this tomorrow because I need to get started on the rest of these clips. I'm running out of time. Okay, it's day 4, and well, the clip is done being built, and I've done some tests already, like some real tests. Haven't gotten it to work yet, but I'm calling it for the day. This clip is just really loud, and I can't really test late at night because I'm in an apartment. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it's going, really. The tests I've done so far have been very sort of chaotic, and just like more than one thing goes wrong a lot of the time, but it's hard to tell whether that's independent things going wrong or one thing going wrong which causes another thing to go wrong, and so on. Because that's just kind of the nature of this. There's a lot that's going on simultaneously and a lot that's codependent on each other. Like, you know, the levers that flip the thing over will only work if you know, the weight for the gear pulling gets triggered, which will only work if, you know, it's a lot to explain, but there's a lot that's kind of interconnected. So it's tough to tell, but I'm just very discouraged at how long this has taken. It is day 1 of the next clip. This will be clip 7 of 8. So the first big update is that we're only making 8 clips. I just can't make 3 in the remaining like 6 days that I have. So we've found a way to reshuffle the clips and basically cut one out. So I'm making 8 instead of 9. This is the second to last one, and I still have to go pretty quickly to finish them, but it's not impossible. I've got about 3 days each, so I'm feeling okay. Anyway, here's this idea. And this idea is the first idea that I've actually drawn out specifically how something is going to look/work. So it involves the concept of a Jacob's ladder, which is like that flexing toy that like you tilt the top one, and then the strings, the way that the strings are oriented, it causes a cascade kind of waterfall effect of each of the, it's made of different boards, and each of the boards flips 180 degrees as it goes down in kind of this cascade effect. It's a bit hard to describe, but I think if you've seen it, you'll know what it means. So that's the idea. And each of the modules is a zigzag board, kind of. It's actually 2 parts. There's the top and the bottom. So basically the idea, this isn't taped together quite yet, so it's going to be hard to hold. But basically the idea is that a marble will go down one side, and then it'll flip over and then cause the cascade for all the other identical modules, and then go down the other side. And then as it goes down the other side, it'll fall all the way through this one into the next one, and then it'll tilt again. And you can see where this is going. So every time it flips, it goes through 2 modules and then stops at the bottom, and then flips over, goes back through the one that was already in, and then goes through the next one, flips again, etc., etc. So that is this. And basically, it's just a really confusing trick to build. There's so much to keep track of, where the strings need to go, how long the strings need to be, what needs to be built in what order, all of the dimensions of everything, making sure all the dimensions line up. So it actually requires 16 pieces of plexiglass. 12 of them, no, actually 8 of them are this size, which are the front and back plates for each module. 4 of them are the same width, but a different height. You can see how this one is slightly shorter, and that's to allow the marble to switch from one module to the next. It reaches the bottom and then exits and goes to the other side, so it needs room to do that. So this one's a little bit shorter. And then there's also the bottom piece. So there's these pieces that go on the bottom, and these are a little bit shorter than that. These still need notches cut into them to make room for the strings, because basically they go on the edges like this, and I can't block the strings. So there's going to be like a slit or a little notch cut in to make room for the strings. But this is what one module will look like, minus the actual zigzag inside. So yeah, the reason I'm stopping now for today is just I need to cut the notch, and and this is kind of what I mean by a confusing trick to build. I can't really build the rest of this module, like I can't put the zigzag board inside until I attach the strings to all the pieces, but I can't put the strings on all the pieces until I know how thick these are, which means I need to put these on, but I can't actually attach them on here because then I'll never be able to build the zigzag board inside. So I'm kind of marking out how thick the dimension of this is actually going to be. But I also need the bottom piece to know how thick it's going to be. I also need that to know how long the strings need to be, because it needs to wrap around that small part. So I need to cut the notches before I can wrap the string, before I can put this on, before I can build the zigzag inside. And that's even all before I actually build, the infrastructure of actually making this whole thing like rotate and whatever, which I think is just going to be like a connects structure or something. But that's like a very easy last step. So yeah, it's just a confusing trick that I got to make sure I do everything in the right order and be very conscientious of not making any mistakes, and especially because it's going to be hard to backtrack. And like you've already seen, like I can't attach all this stuff together until the string is taped to the block. So once the string is taped to the block, I can tape the block to the plexiglass, but not the front and the back plates, just the inside plate. But I can't attach the string to the other side until I know how thick this whole module is going to be. But I don't know how thick the module is going to be until I make the notches for the bottom parts. And I can't do the bottom, and I can't make the notches for the bottom parts because it's really late, and that's going to make a lot of noise. So that's where we're at. That's why I've stopped. But we'll pick this up tomorrow. It'll be fun. It is day 2 of this trick with the Jacob's Ladder zigzag board modules, and it doesn't look like I've done much, but oh boy, this was not easy to put together. This is a very confusing thing, like I was talking about yesterday. It's very confusing where everything goes and where all the strings go, and making sure all the dimensions are perfect and everything. So it's done now. It's perfectly put together. These cards here, this 8 of hearts and 2 of diamonds, are not going to be in the final model. Those are there because I was kind of experimenting with different barriers. You'll see in a second. So if I can hold this up with one hand, hopefully. I gotta be careful how I do it. But you'll notice it doesn't exactly fall completely straight. It falls, the way it naturally would based on the weight. So there is that problem. That's actually what these cards are for. It's to help assist the marble, as it transitions from one module into the next. So yeah, each one is divided into 2 compartments with a gap at the bottom to allow it to pass through. So without the ball actually in right now, because I still have to add the zigzag boards, the idea is it'll go in the back, work its way down, and then shift to the front to make its way out the front side once it flips. So how do I want to do this? Let's see. Okay. Maybe this might work. Okay, so it's in the front now, and then it rotates. Yeah, you cannot really tell that that's what I'm trying to hold my camera far away so you can actually see this. But, yeah. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. I gotta make sure that I do everything perfectly straight on. Because if I set this down, you'll notice what's going to happen is that these strings will start to come off of where they're supposed to be. And they kind of come off the rails, if you will. Like this one here is supposed to be, up and around that corner, but it has slipped off. So I'm trying to figure out how I might fix that problem. Whether there's some kind of guardrails on either side. So that like some kind of walls basically that are exactly the width of these modules so that they can't like shift back and forth like this, because that's what's causing the strings to slip. I don't know. That might be too much. It might be a little silly to look at, but I might be able to make it look okay. So yeah, I'm stopping for the night just because it's late, but there's actually quite a lot left to do. This is, as is the case for all of these clips, a 3-day project that is going to balloon into a 7-day project. Hopefully not, though. I got 1 day left sort of bookmarked to finish this, but I don't think I'll get it done by then. So I'm hoping to get it done in 2 more days and then have 2 days left to make a pretty basic final clip. So we'll see. I've still got to make the zigzag boards, and then of course make the entire module or the entire like connect structure that's actually going to rotate all of these at the right times, and then just connections and transitions. And I say all that as if like that won't take a couple of days. So yeah, nothing to worry about though. Nothing seems wrong at the moment. It's just sort of smooth sailing, but still work to be done. It is day 3, and, well, I spent today doing something that I didn't expect would take an entire day. I wanted to get started on making the zigzag pieces that go inside each of the 4 Jacob's Ladder modules. But in order to get started on that, I needed to actually build the structure and figure out how tall it was going to be and, get all that stuff working. Then I realized I don't actually know how I'm going to make this whole thing oscillate back and forth. So I had this idea of mounting gears onto the side, small gears like this size, onto the side, and then using a big gear and just have the big gear rotate and mesh with that gear. And of course it would just it would have to go back and forth, in order to work. But I figured like that would just work. That would be fine. No big deal. But if not, I had this backup plan, which is this. So that did not work. Not even a little. It's just really heavy. This whole thing is really heavy. And it requires a lot of force to actually like turn this whole thing over, because if you notice when it turns, it actually has to lift the entire thing slightly, right? So like this part actually has to go up as it turns. Anyway, this is the other option, which was the flexing cross, which I actually I had this idea for a long time ago to do a Jacob's Ladder with a flexing cross, because I noticed that it would actually be the perfect way to do this sort of thing, where you have, something that can do this and then flip this way and then flip that way, etc. And that's exactly the motion that a flexing cross allows you to accomplish. So this is the backup plan, and this ended up working well. However, that was still not the end of the story, because how on earth do you make something oscillate back and forth? I can make something tilt one direction by just having a piece of string on the end and just pulling it, right? And I guess I should demonstrate this. It actually looks pretty cool. So here's what that would look like. Hooray. Awesome. And then back this way. Pretty cool. But like I was saying, yeah, you could just do it once and just have the string attached. Boom, there you go. But now I have to pull this side again. It actually has to be pulled 4 times. It has to change 4 times. So it needs to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So if the string is now pulling on here, then I got to overcome that force somehow in order if I'm going to pull on this side, or I have to disconnect the string somehow. But if the string is disconnected, if the string is able to be disconnected, how is it able to not fall off when it's in this position if it needs to go back that way a 3rd time? It's just it was impossible to figure out. However, I figured it out basically by having these little let's call them washers, but I was going to say washers because that's what they function as, but they are Connex pieces. And basically they just go on the rod itself, and there's just enough friction that they are able to hold themselves in place upside down, just by themselves without falling off, but they do slide right off very easily. So that's basically how I'm doing that. And then 2 of these on each end of the rod. So they kind of get pulled off in sequence, and these are the releases for those. And this took the whole day to make, surprisingly. Or maybe not surprisingly, if considering how long it took me to explain that. Yeah. Hopefully I can finish this tomorrow. I keep putting a whole lot of faith in... Oh, I forgot to mention this. This is this is one of my original plans for how I was going to do the string pull. So instead of this, I was trying to think of ways of pulling on the string, and yeah, this isn't possible. I'm not going to spend the time to explain all this, but I thought maybe if I had a big heavy ball fall into here, then this could, this gear sequence would spin this wheel, and that would pull the string, which would be attached to this, so it would pull the string down, and then the ball would exit, so that would allow this to unroll back up, and it wouldn't be as heavy, so that way the other side, there'd be an identical module on the other side, and it could do that again, and it would do that 4 times. Yeah. Didn't work at all, so this was garbage. I just have it here because I wanted to show it in this update. Yeah, so anyway, I'm putting a whole lot of faith in these Zigzag board modules being easy to put together. I really hope. I can't think of any reason they wouldn't be, but it's kind of stressful. And then the other thing is just the connections. So these are clothespin releases, which we've seen a million times in previous clips that I've built. But I just have to figure out the most efficient way of getting from one to the other. So I think at the moment it's this one, and then I can't remember. I think it's this one next, then this one, and then this one. So I got to figure out some way of maybe some strings or some balls on track just to get from one place to another. I don't want any of this to really draw your attention, though. Like I'm trying to make this as discreet as possible. It's just connections. Very boring, nothing exciting. But I do have to figure out how it's going to work. And then just transitions. The transition in and the transition out. So hopefully this could be done tomorrow. But if anything is, if any of the previous clips are an indication, it probably won't be. Wish me luck. Day 4, and we're still not quite done. So if you do the math real quick, that means I am going to have 1 day to build a clip. Because I have to spend another day finishing this. Hopefully, maybe it's only a half day. So maybe I'll get a day and a half to make the final clip. But It's going to be tight. Anyway, so new stuff. Originally, I thought this clip might be Machines 1, the first Machines clip. But I realized that the transitions actually work better if I make it the last clip. I only had one, and I call it 9, even though there are only 8 clips. We didn't renumber them. So I only had the first and the last left to make. I thought this might be the first, or I was planning on it being the first, but it ends up the transitions work better if it's actually the finale. So part of the reason why it's going to take an extra day is because I have to add the finale stuff, like the sign revealer, and then the thing that says who won, and like the question mark, and every year that I make the finale, it alternates back and forth. I always do something special for the finale. So round 4, I launched something at the camera. Round 6, what did I do in rounds? Oh yeah, I had the big Mario Kart item box thing. And then episode 8, I'm going to have a confetti fanfare thing. So I had to build this confetti launcher thing. I'm not going to actually set it off right now, but it's rubber band powered. So this gets loaded all the way down at the bottom. And then, you kind of see how it launches up and then it throws the confetti. So that's part of why it's taken so long, is because I have to add the finale stuff. But anyway, like I said yesterday, the next step was adding in the zigzag pieces inside the Jacob's ladder. And oh my gosh, this was fun. This was a lot of fun to put together. Once I figured out how I was going to keep track of the orientation of everything, then it was fun. Yeah, and actually it works really well. So we'll do a little demo here. We got the marble. So marble rolls in, and it goes down the red side, and then it gets caught in this little corner, and then everything pivots, and then it goes down the next two, and then it gets caught in this little corner, and then it goes down again, or flips again, and it's going to keep going down. Oh boy, that wasn't supposed to happen. I'll have to look into why that happened. The track just fell off the table. So now it went down the next two and landed here. And then finally, well, actually, no, there's one more step before the finale. Goes down one more and then lands here. And then now finally it exits when it tips the last time. There you go. So the next thing to make is some kind of catch basin. Here I'm thinking just a little platform that will sort of, funnel the ball. Marble, I guess, but it is a ball. It's a sphere, technically. To funnel the marble out, and then it would turn the corner and just whatever that leads to the finale. So, yeah, the other thing is these connection systems. So instead of, I was talking yesterday how I wasn't sure how I was going to lead from one of the clothespins to the next, and then back and forth and back and forth. This is how I came up with in order to do that. And that's part of why I was saying the transitions work better if I make this a finale, because I kind of already put in these auto tilt things. I guess, okay, let's talk about the auto tilt. So it starts here with a white ball, goes this way, auto tilt, goes back that way. So that takes care of one clothespin release when it gets to here, and one clothespin when it gets back to here. And then it goes and then it also hits this ball for the next one and repeats the process over here. So this was already in before I switched this to the finale clip, when I realized, the transition out of Machines 8, the 7th machine clip, is a white ping pong ball rolling from left to right. So what if that just became the ball that goes here? So the ball that actually gets used in, the actual trick of the previous clip ends up rolling in and becoming part of the connection system for this clip, which is kind of cool. I always like doing things like that if I can. Yeah. So, the time is stressing me out, but the clip seems to be working okay, except for the fact that the track fell off the table. Day 5, or rather 4.5, let's say. Hopefully, once I get this to work tonight, I can take it apart and start something new, so I have at least something going into the final day. And I'll have more than just one day for the last clip. But this is done. So we've got this really nice looking finale here with the who won, and then the big question mark block, which is just a reused element from round 6, except I changed the background color, which is easier said than done, I guess. I mean, it required a whole arts and crafts thing. But the idea is that this is a cover, and you can't read it yet, but you see that there's a question mark, and it's like, okay, well, what's behind here? It's a mystery. And then it opens, and then the question mark literally becomes the punctuation on the question, even though there is another question mark here. I think last time I did a finale, round 6, I printed out the text that said who won without the question mark, and it didn't really, and I kind of did the same thing where I had a question mark block, or a question mark cutout, and it was meant to be the punctuation on that sentence, but it didn't look right. Like it read like who won question mark rather than who won. Anyway, this is how I'm reloading the confetti. So I just kind of gather it all in here and then dump that into that one. So this is the collection basin for the marble. I mean, it's very unpredictable where this thing shoots out once it exits the Jacob's ladder. So it's a nice little board here. It funnels it down. The track leads to the finale. Yeah, and this track we had yesterday. Yeah, I mean, nothing too much has been added, but it's all been connected. So I'm going into the testing phase now. Hopefully it can work pretty much right away, but I have a feeling that it won't. I've done some preliminary tests, and sometimes the marble, just kind of shoots out randomly and doesn't go where it's supposed to, just because the motion is inherently unreliable, or unpredictable, rather. So when sometimes it just exits and like jumps into the wrong segment, the wrong slot, sort of. And of course, the marble is trying to transition to the next module as the thing is swinging back and forth wildly, so that's causing a lot of just erratic motion. Anyway, the other thing that I'm worried about is the connection system. So I have no faith in this whatsoever. I mean, this is one of the worst things I've made in a long time in terms of reliability. Like, I don't know. I can't think of anything better to do to get from one side of the table to the other, and then back and forth and back and forth. I mean, this is the best thing that I could think of that would do that and not look terrible and not be super distracting. But it just doesn't really work that well. So I'm anticipating quite a few fails where either, the ball doesn't knock off the domino at the end. I'm anticipating fails where multiple dominoes get triggered at the same time because the strings are crossing over, and there's a lot of string, it's like spaghetti factory type string orientation over here, or string organization rather. Same thing over here, but a little bit to a little bit of a lesser extent. It's not quite as bad. So I'm anticipating some fails like that where the strings get tangled and cause multiple things to go at once. I'm anticipating several fails where this gets pulled on, like it gets pulled on, but then it just slips off before the actual thing can rotate. Like I'm anticipating something like this where it just does that. I've tried to minimize that, but yeah, any number of things could go wrong. The one thing I am very confident in is the finale. I know that the confetti will work. I know that the sign reveal will work. Yeah. Wish me luck. All right, it is day 1 of the last clip that I have to make for the video. And today is October 31st. I was hoping to be completely done with all of the clips by the end of this month, just to give myself the 1st and the 2nd of November to edit and upload and do all the YouTube stuff, and then November 3rd, release the video. So the schedule is going to be a little bit tighter now because this isn't quite done yet. I'm going to try to finish this tomorrow morning, edit during that day, and then Yeah, I'll figure it out. It'll get done by November 3rd, but the schedule is tighter. Anyway, this idea involves a flexing parallelogram, except it's twisted in this weird way. So this came because I made a flexing parallelogram, I think for my tutorial series, the 50 fundamental chain reaction mechanisms. And I made it in such a way that I got curious as to what happened if I twisted the modules. So this is what I did. I ended up doing that before, and then I took a video of it, and I saved it just because I thought, that's an interesting motion. Maybe I'll use that someday. So today is that day. This is the clip that I wanted to make in one day, basically. So it's a pretty simple idea. And that was the intent. That was what I wanted. So anyway, here's the motion. Basically, as it moves over, it does a complete 180 rotation. It's very strange. So yeah, it's this kind of cool sort of flippy motion, which I thought was really wacky and weird. But the cool thing is, as well, in addition to flipping over like that, it doesn't rotate at all. So notice if I align this perfectly horizontal over here, the track is perfectly horizontal, and then I flip it over, look how it lands. Perfectly horizontal, the exact same position as it was on the other side, which is a bit curious, because where's that 180 degrees coming from? It's not pivoting 180 degrees, it's pivoting, maybe somewhere around 160 or 150 degrees. It's not going exactly parallel to the table to exactly parallel to the table on the other side. And then also, where's the 180 coming from? It's curious. It's a weird motion. So that's the idea, is gear that flips and does this weird flip motion with a track on it. So in each position, the track rotates 180 degrees. So it starts upside down on this side, and then the gear rotates it, and then it flips over, and then this gear rotates it that way. That's all there is to it, but it's just about making the connections happen. It's a one-ball path, I guess. So the blue ball rolls over this track, and then as it's rolling around, all that other stuff is happening. So it's just a matter of making the connections so that everything happens in the right moment. But it's a pretty simple idea overall. Hopefully I can finish this up tomorrow morning. Day 2 of the twisty flexing parallelogram gear track rotation trick. And it's done. I just have to film it and then right away start on editing. It is November 1st, and I wanted to have today and tomorrow for the editing, with the 3rd as a backup day, which now looks inevitable that I'll need it, which is I still think doable, but let's take you through the things I've added. So, what are the new additions? Well, there's all of the weights that are hanging off of the table, and the release mechanisms for everything. Yesterday I had pretty much all of the bare bones in place. All of the most important things were there. Let me take the weights off of the table so I can just kind of move it freely. Let's see. What are some of the problems that I had? Actually, one of the problems I had was that the ball didn't have enough speed when it was coming around. It was just kind of running out of speed, and then it wasn't, because this whole thing, the way that it has to be, is that this has to be a completely straight track, as in totally level. There can't be any slopes down, because this track, when it rolls over it the first time, and this track, when it rolls over it the second time, they're at the same elevation. I I guess I could have put in some like ball kickers or ball boosters or like track lifter machinery, but that's really that's pushing it in terms of how much time I wanted to spend on this. But more importantly, it's very distracting. That kind of stuff I hate doing. Not because I'm lazy, although it does save me some work. It's because it's distracting. I don't want to have, the ball rolling around here, and then you see all this kind of stuff reacting to like lift a track or, kick the ball or whatever. You're supposed to be watching the track that moves. So this had to be just a regular straight track. Anyway, how did I fix it? The table is elevated. It's on, or it's not, well, the table is elevated on one side. It's tilted. So I've got these dominoes under the right side of the table, and that makes this whole thing slightly tilted to this direction, to the left. So, yeah, I mean, that's mostly it. It's a pretty basic trick. I got the Pitagora Suichi in there. I have to include that in every video. It's a little Easter egg. Yeah, this is all ready to be filmed.